Hey y'all, it's Dr. Stevens again with Texas Chiro Health. I wanted to thank y'all so much for joining us again for our Zoom call. We're always trying to focus on making sure that people are eating, they're moving, they're thinking well, so that way we can really slow down the degradation of our health. So our bodies are always trying to degenerate, and the way that we can slow that down the best is actually by creating homeostasis within our cells. That means that we're giving it the nutrients it needs. That means we're giving it proper motion. That means we're managing our stress. Now, I'm really excited about today's and pretty much whole article because it's all about weight gain, or I should say weight loss with omega-3s and the important effect that it can have on our bodies from the inside. I had some great questions from patients last night. So I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Chris here in just a moment, and then we'll take some questions. So Dr. Chris, off to you.
Hey everybody, Dr. Chris Phillips here with Texas Chiro Health, back for our weekly 12 Minutes to Health. I wanted to say thank you for joining us as always. We really appreciate the people that join us each and every week to learn how to eat better, move more, and have less stress in their lives. And not just learn how to do those things, but learning the effect of those good choices that you're making are having on your health. So I appreciate you guys being here. As always, I encourage you to come into the office on Tuesday nights, meet with the doctors, get all your questions answered. We have refreshments in there, healthy refreshments for you for each week at 6 o'clock on Tuesday nights. But the biggest benefit is really just getting to get into the office, meet with the doctors, and ask all the questions that you want and get the answers that you need for you, your family, your health, and how to eat better, move more, and think better. So we're going to be getting into the research here in just a second. One of the big things that I always talk to you about is how important the research is, that it's the correct research, the right research. Another example I was thinking about today, because we're going to be talking about essential fatty acids, omega-3s, is some research that was done probably about 10, 15 years ago now that the sugar companies paid for. And they paid for this research to be done to blame all the health issues on fat, not sugar, saying people were having too much fat and sugar wasn't the problem, right? This was paid for by the sugar companies. And then people took this research seriously. You can remember growing up, or I can at least, in the 80s, 90s, where fat was the enemy, right? If we had to lose weight or if we wanted to be healthy, we had to get rid of the fat. So America quickly became we had the highest proportion of non-fat foods or diet foods, and our weight just went boom, 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 boom. We became the fattest country in the world eating nothing but diet foods, and that's because of poor research. And that's why we're so committed to bringing you the honest research, the real research that's out there, the peer-reviewed randomized controlled trials, that's found in the medical journals, so that we can give you not my opinion, but facts for an unbiased approach to health. So it just hit me when I was going through all the fatty acid stuff that the sugar companies did that, and I forget about it every once in a while, but it is an example of how research can go wrong and be wrong for you to buy into from time to time. So thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and jump into the research. Tonight's topic really is looking at omega-3s, good fats, and how that applies to weight loss or obesity. And the study was done by Li and Huang, and it's called Anti-Obesity Effects of Conjugated Linoleic Acid, docosahexaenoic acid, and eicosapentaenoic acid. So basically that's DHA, EPA, and the conjugated linoleic acid, which are found in the omega-3 fish oils. I want to say before we get started with this, weight loss for me is not a result, it's a side effect of being healthy. And I think that's the way it has to be approached, right? Because if we are just going into it for weight loss, that's not too hard to accomplish, but keeping that weight off and being healthy while doing it is a totally different subject, right? I mean, because myself, I've lost weight my whole life. I've managed my weight, being that I wrestled in high school and college and had to be at a certain weight class, so I was constantly having to lose weight. I could do that with pizza and ramen noodles if I wanted to, and I've done it, right? I've done it incorrectly because I just didn't know, and I was not healthy when I was doing something like that. And long term, that's just not sustainable. I was talking about this with my wife the other day. She's like, man, I think I could use to lose a little weight. And I said, no, we need to get healthy. The weight will come off when we get back to being healthy, because everyone slips from time to time, right? But it's not weight loss that we need to be focusing on. It's health And weight loss will be one of those positive side effects, just like more energy and better sleep and, things like that. So we've got to focus on eating well, moving well, and thinking well. But what we will talk about, and what this article does a great job of researching, is how omega-3s and good fats actually can help in the weight loss process while getting healthy, and why you're losing some of the weight that you're losing. So it was a good research article, and they started off by talking about good fats. Like I said, we used to think that all fats were bad, and that was because of what the sugar companies made us believe to sell their product and not another product. But what we found is the right fats, the good fats, do a ton of different stuff for our body that is hugely beneficial for our health. Right? So, it lowers inflammation, which is big when you're talking about losing weight, which we'll talk about. But the lowering of inflammation, these good fats, the omega-3s, are good for heart health. They're good for brain health. They're good for depression, anxiety. There's so many studies out there. And we find more and more stuff as we dig into these, because we're seeing such positive effects from these good essential fatty acids. One of the big things that omega-3s and the good fats that we find, olive oils and avocados and the fatty fish and things like that, and even good beef, just good red meat that's grass-fed and grass-finished, is filled with omega-3s. The problem comes when we start to introduce grains to cattle, and it fattens them up, and it gives it that intramuscular fat that tastes delicious, right? But it's also an omega-6 fat, and that's part of this thing. That's why I put this balance picture on there, is because everything comes down to keeping a balance. And we've got to keep a balance between omega-3s and omega-6s, right? The average American right now is anywhere from like 16 to 20 to 1, 6s to 3s, right? So if we look at the low side, 16 to 1 omega-6s to omega-3s, we need to get that ratio back to 1 to 1. If we're going to be healthy, reduce inflammation, as a side effect, lose weight, right? But have all the other big benefits that we have from lower inflammation and less omega-6s in our diets. But one of the things that the omega-3s does is it inhibits key enzymes, okay? And what I'm talking about there are certain enzymes in our body when we take in sugar, or we take in carbohydrates or protein or whatever we're taking in, and we don't use it all. We're not burning it right away, right? We've got to store that. So there's enzymes in our body that break that down and convert it into fat, right? Like fatty acid synthase is one of them, and it creates fat, and then we store that fat. Well, when you have omega-3s, what they found in these studies, and these studies were animal models, so I like to see human model tests, but we can't ignore animal models because that's what leads us to a human model. And a lot of times we draw some of the same lines between the two, so I still find it to be a good study in that sense. But anyways, it's limiting the fatty acid synthase, and at the same time, it increases thermogenesis. And thermogenesis is the breakdown of fat for us, right? The breakdown of fat, which leads to us using fat for energy. It's a big thing right now. Everybody's talking about keto diet, right? Getting into ketosis and using fat as our energy source. Well, omega-3s are very beneficial in doing that, and there is benefit to it. And I think it's how we lived a lot as we were evolving. We had more fats and meats and things like that that allowed us to get the omega-3s into our body, which also developed our brain as we were evolving. The entire outside of our brain is made up of omega-3 fats, essentially. That neocortex, what makes us human compared to when we were Neanderthal, or even before that, right? What happened is we started eating animal meat. We developed tools and fire, and we're cooking animal meat and eating it, and we developed a neocortex layer, which is hugely beneficial to us. So when we burn those fats and we use those as energy, that's another big benefit that we see from the omega-3s being in the right balance, right? We can get out of control with omega-3s too, just like you can anything, right? Too much of a good thing is not a good thing at a point. But in our American Western civilization, our ratio is so far off that we have got to add more omega-3s into our diet. And a lot of fish is farm raised now. The cattle, like I talked about, is extra fatty because of grains and things like that. So we've lost omega-3s in how we're producing food. And that's why we have to supplement this back into our diet to get that ratio back to where we need it so that we can keep things in balance. The study goes on to show that omega-3s are a benefit because they decrease fat storage. Okay, so when we have fat and we're not using it as energy at the time, or we have too many carbohydrates or whatever it is, and we need to store this fat for when we need it later, we store it in fat cells or adipose cells. And those cells have two options, really. They get really big, or they bulge and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, or they divide and they split up. Now, the division kind of helps us because then we have more to burn, and as long as we're burning through it and stuff, it's better than the bulging fat cells, because what we see with the bulging fat cells is they get so full they start to leak into the blood if they don't divide, right? So the idea is to burn our fat, to use it and use it as their primary energy source, and omega-3s allow us to let that happen, right? Because we don't store as much of the fat, because we have a balance in there. We have fat readily available, good fat that we can use easily, and we can break down, and we use it for energy, and that should be our primary energy source. So if we're going to decrease things like this is a review of studies, right? They looked at a bunch of different studies. So one of the things they found, as in a human trial, they found they didn't lose weight, but their waist size went down considerably. And it's because they lost a lot of belly fat. And that's because of the ability of the omega-3, those good fats, to come in and stop the fat storage. It doesn't stop it completely, but it decreased it significantly to where they were able to burn belly fat. Now, they didn't lose weight, the number on the scale, but they did lose belly fat and circumference around their waist. So that was a big finding in a human study that was part of this study. So it was really good to see that. Another benefit that the research showed in this one is the increase in insulin receptor sensitivity, right? By taking omega-3 fatty acids, I've included this little diagram because it helps explain it a little bit. If you see on the left side, you have your normal insulin metabolism, where the glucose comes in, it attaches the insulin at the cell wall, goes through the blood and into the cell where it can be used and burned and things like that. Our cells need this stuff, right? On the right side, this is where we don't have omega-3. So you see a resistance to insulin. As you get more and more fat, the insulin can't keep up, right? This is type 2 diabetes, eventually, that you're seeing on the right side. That fat gets into the blood, less of it's in the cells. Our cells aren't functioning like they should because they're not using their primary energy source, and you just run into a whole host of problems. So omega-3s are a big part of making up our cell walls and firing these receptors and increasing the sensitivity of insulin because of the fluidity of an omega-3 fatty acid, right? And it keeps your cell walls healthy and everything else, so that we can use glucose, we can use fats and things the way that we were intended to, so that the glucose can get into the cell and we can use the glucose from there to put out ATP and make energy for ourselves to continue to go run and burn what we need to burn. So it's a really big deal when you look at the omega-3s and increasing the insulin receptor sensitivity, especially with the diabetes, with the increase in diabetes that we've seen, especially type 2. Type 1 has kind of stayed the same, and there's some different factors that play in there, but type 2 has gone up significantly as obesity has climbed significantly as well. So the omega-3 fatty acids are huge and important in doing that. So getting a good quality omega-3 is another big deal. So if you look at the omega-3s, they come in different forms, and there's tons of them out there. You just have to know what to look for. We need an omega-3 that comes from wild-caught fish, right? And it's typically the cold water, wild-caught fatty fish that you get the omega-3s from. And a lot of times we try to break that down and make concentrates out of it, right? And that's what a lot of the omega-3s that I see come into my office is concentrates. Well, the problem is, to do that, they have to break one of the bonds and put it back together, and it just doesn't work. It actually creates an inflammatory situation. So I know there are more questions on what's a good omega-3 and what's not. That's why it's so important to get in on Tuesday nights, or just swing by the office whenever, grab some of this research. We have it in the office. But also just talk to the doctor and get your questions answered about what's a good omega-3 and what's not, because it's a really important subject and it's way too much to go into right now. So reach out to us and get your questions answered there. As always, I know that there are people, that are wondering about the omega-3s that are not as healthy as they want to be. They have some pain, some aches and pains, and that's that's why we have a special offer with a charity that we support each month. And we've gotten the cost for our x-rays and our spinal health assessment and the report that goes along with that and the exam, the consultation, all that stuff that we do down to just $39 donation to that monthly charity. So, and the reason we do this is, yes, we do love supporting our community, and that's a big part of it. But at the end of the day, I know that there's new patients out there looking for the truth about health. And I know there's barriers that stop them from coming into the office. One of those barriers is cost from time to time. And that's why at $39, there's just no more excuses to come in and go through this process and get the answers you need. I mean, the spinal health assessment that's listed here, it's a proprietary health software that we use in the office that, it assesses your lifestyle and it looks at how healthy you really are. And it gives you a health score from 0 to 100. The value in that and the report in itself is huge. And that's why we need to get more people to know about it and to hear about it and to go through the process. And that's why we use the $39 donation, all of which goes back to our monthly charity. So if you need something, if you know somebody who needs something, send them to the office. We'll get them set up with all this stuff for the $39. But if you can, like this and share it and tell your friends about it. But most importantly, make sure that you're getting healthy and that you're understanding it and that you're coming into the office to get your answers. So I'll see you guys next week, and I really appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Great talk, Dr. Phillips, as always. And so if y'all have any questions, I know there's a few people on here. If you have any questions, type them into the chat box real quick. I'm going to share my screen real fast. And as Dr. Phillips mentioned, guys, our main goal to do this is to educate you, but we want to give back to you so you can continue to educate yourself, right? It's positive reinforcement. And so, we're going to give you guys free lunch if you write us a review, Yelp, Google, Facebook, whatever it is. If you're on the call today, make sure you go on the Facebook page, comment on the video, like us, share us so you get into the drawing for this month of November. We're in November now. We're giving away AirPods. And so, guys, we just want to make sure that you guys stay healthy. And the more you know, the better off you are. And so if you're not as healthy as you want, if you're in pain, if you know someone that wants to be out there is in pain, give us a call and we'll get you guys taken care of. Now, is there any questions?
Nope, I don't see any questions for today.
All right, but if you guys have any questions, shoot them our way. Do have a link to our Facebook. I don't have one on me, but you can Texas Chiro Health, just look it up on Facebook. It should take us right there. And then that's where we're at. Do you have any other questions, David? That looks like it is. All righty. All right. So see you guys next week. It's going to be a great talk as always, and be safe out there.